Oh, yeah. Thank you guys so much for being here and spending some of your Saturday with us. It's really, I mean, you'll understand why this is such a huge passion of mine, and most of you likely already know why this is such a huge passion of Christie's, and we'll talk about that as well. Um, but yeah, why don't we start with how we met,
Yeah,
which was 2019.
29.
And I remember you reached out to me because of a anoxic brain injury with Denise.
Yep. And at the time, I was blending by myself. I didn't have my blending hope group. And I was at a point where she was, you when you first get into this journey, I think we all have a similar story of you do what people tell you to do. You kind of feel like, okay, I'm gonna pass off the control. And so at the time, Denise was on a lot of formula. That's just standard care. Typically, when someone ends up in a recovery or with an accident. I've never, it's formula. They give it to you. You don't, in my experience, you don't have a choice. So she was just put on like Nestle Complete, and she was having a lot of gut issues. And one thing I can reflect on today is I always thought that that was just brain injury. I always thought, okay, she just had a brain injury. She's throwing up. She's sick. Because when you go to the doctor and you say she's throwing up, they just say, here's a medication that's normal. So when I found you, I had this mission in my head of what I wanted her recovery to look like. And it wasn't exactly aligning with mainstream medicine of they kind of feel like however you progress a year, is it a year to after your brain injury, they believe that that's kind of final.
That's it, right?
And I wasn't accepting that. There was no way. Sometimes determination comes out of spite. You want to prove people wrong. And I actually saw something on your page that I'll touch back on that. So when I came to you, I hadn't started blending, but I really wanted guidance. And I had read your book, and I was like, this is exactly everything I'm looking for, from what not to feed her to what to feed her. Because sometimes it's more important what we don't eat, so what we eat. And I think what caught my attention most was your story of how you got into it. Because honestly, your story is something that probably every mom in my group wishes they had for their child. Um, you you were given I want you to tell a little bit about your story, because I just think
Sure,
that's a huge part of both of it.
absolutely. Yeah, so 2011, I experienced a severe traumatic brain injury. Fell from a rooftop water tower scaffolding, was instantly unconscious, rushed to the hospital, put on life support. My family was told that I had less than a 10% chance of emerging from a minimally conscious state. So I'm very fortunate to have emerged. They were also told that even if I did, I would likely remain in a persistent vegetative state and dependent for the rest of my life. And I'm very fortunate to have come to and a lot went into my recovery. I mean, for months I didn't eat, walk, or talk. My left hand was totally flexed inward like this. I was breathing through a tube in my neck. You can kind of see that scar. And I was receiving nutrition through a tube in my belly. And I'm going to put nutrition in quotes because that's what it was. It was formula, right? It was you know, ingredients: corn syrup, soy protein isolate, corn maltodextrin, calcium caseinate, canola oil. Breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner for months. And this is for years for some patients, especially pediatrics, who like, especially children who are unable to eat conventionally. And looking at that, I mean, I, I, I went through, at one point I was steered towards a nutritional protocol and I started to regain some clarity and I was like, whoa, nutrition really matters. And like most Americans, that was not on my radar. Nutrition wasn't on my radar. If you have something, listen to the doctor. The doctor is going to give you the prescription. They've gone to school for a very, very long time. They know exactly what to give you. They're specialized in whatever thing. And, talk to your gastroenterologist or something like that. And then I'm watching that they're feeding me fortified corn syrup for every meal. And nutrition, when I changed my nutrition, soon after that, I took my first steps. I then had I did a lot of work to lift my wrists as much as I could, and as soon as I could wrap it around a guitar, that's what I did because I used to be a musician. I mean, I'm still a musician. I can't play like I used to, but and then I had a throat surgery and I could talk after that. And then as soon as I could talk, I tried to sing. And music played a huge part, but that's a whole nother story. The bottom line is nutrition. Like once I changed that, and I mean, maybe it wasn't the nutrition, but it was interesting that soon after changing what I was eating, I took my first steps, and it just I made a huge leaps and bounds in my recovery. When I began healing my digestion, it skyrocketed so much more. Um, So an analogy on this that I like to use is that many connections in my brain have been damaged. So I think of rebuilding those connections like building a bridge. And so what do we need to build a bridge? We need supplies, we need skilled workers, and we need to get the supplies to the construction site. So supplies would be the nutrition, brain building nutrition, the right kind of nutrition. Skilled workers would be the therapy, the targeted therapy, the right kind of therapy. And then getting the supplies to the construction site, that's digestion. And if our digestion is not functioning well, we're not getting the nutrients we're consuming. And so I began to study, I trained in functional nutrition and neurology and learned everything I could to give myself the best shot to recover. Um, and it's been an amazing journey. And I work with clients who often have a loved one in a medical crisis or who have gone through, who have been within the medical system for a long time, long enough to see that it's not getting them or their loved ones well. And it's just an unfortunate profit driven system. It's not the doctor's faults either. The doctors are usually meaning well, but the way the system is set up is hyper specialization. And then, we're going to treat the symptoms essentially. And what we're especially focused on is drugs and procedures and imaging and things of that sort. And I could go into that. I might be on my soapbox right now. I might step back a little bit. But what I was realizing is that the very first thing that opened my eyes was nutrition. We are giving people fortified corn syrup that we're trying to get well.
Yeah.
I mean, Christy, how many processed meals do you think humans should eat per day? What do you think is like the healthiest thing for people to eat? How many processed meals?
Ideally none, but I totally understand that in today's world, society, and farmers,
Mm,
the day there was farmers, we learned from our grandma, we learned from our neighbors, we traded food. So
yeah.
I none, but I totally, as a mom, understand why we do it. I mean, your kids are hungry and it's cheap and it's there, and the we're so used to processed food that that's also all kids like. That's a whole nother story too, but that's what kids like because we're used to it. But ideally none. Now, wasn't in your book, was it your mom who first started you giving you real food in the hospital? Is that
Yeah, it was outside of the hospital, but I want to thank you for what you just said. Like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I eat processed food, and I wrote a book on brain nutrition. I still have processed food sometimes,
yeah.
for sure. Um, but it's not something that we need to be eating every meal. And that's where like what happened with my mom when I got out of the hospital, she then had control over what went into my tube,
Yeah.
and she started just blending soups,
Oops.
which was just great thing to do. I mean, it wasn't the way I would do it today. Like now I got my blending strategies down and my nutritional strategies down, what nutrients we need for rebuilding the myelin sheath, for neurotransmitter production, for energy metabolism, for vascular health, and that's what I've kind of designed into how to feed a brain in order to like get your nutrients solidified and doing it not with isolated nutrients in pill form, but doing it with food because that's the way we evolved, with nutrients from food. So yeah, she switched it up, and that's when I started getting a lot better. When I went to see a functional neurologist, Dr. Thomas Culleton, he basically did a blood test and saw that I had low amino acids. Certain amino acids were low, and I was like, and that didn't make much sense to me because I ate meat with every meal and I had a protein shake every morning. And I was like, so I need to do more. And he's like, no, you're not absorbing the nutrients you're consuming. And I looked at him sideways. I was like, what? And he started talking about leaky gut. And, um, and that's when my journey began because I was like, all right, I want to figure out what you're talking about. I'm going to do what you say because, you're the neurologist in this. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do it. It's safe. I'll like just change my diet. It'll be okay. And then I started seeing these changes. And that's what drove my interest so deeply. And and the gut brain axis is huge, which is essentially how digestion affects our brain and how our brain affects digestion. So usually with brain injury, there are digestive problems such as low enzyme production, low stomach acid production, dysbiosis, leaky gut, SIBO, things of this sort. Even C. diff and things of that sort. There's lots of things that can happen and that's from our neurological control. And then what happens is that affects our digestion, which then affects our brain, which then affects our digestion, which then affects our brain, and it just exacerbates itself, and it becomes this vicious cycle. And so when we can dial in and be like, okay, we can control what we put in our mouths. That's like when I realized that was the hands down most empowering aspect I found. I was like, wait. I can decide what I eat and drink. And I just found out that what I eat and drink makes a huge difference in my recovery. And so I began studying functional nutrition and really understanding human physiology and understanding especially how our digestion affects everything because that's the place with nutrition that we have control and digestion affects the endocrine system, it affects the cardiovascular system, it affects all of it, right? Metabolic um metabolism and metabolic conditions are so rampant in our society, and we can control that when we empower ourselves with some knowledge and some tools. And so I'm really excited to dive in and see what we can figure out and how we can help everybody.
Yeah, because it's when you learn more, when it's almost like you learn that you don't know as much as you think.
Yes.
So I I think a lot of focus of this, and also what's really important, is a lot of moms start the real food after a brain injury, after we putting on a lot of medications. And the problem with medications is almost all of them cause leaky gut, and the doctors won't tell you that. So when they start real food, I think there's always this transition or this little feeling of, I'm giving my kid all this healthy food and they can't go bathroom, they're having gas, they're having acid reflux. And most of the key to that is just what you laid on, is that you can be feeding your children perfect, but if when they have a brain injury, they often need support in other ways. And I think that's one of, because some people think I hear people say my kid's on formula because they can't handle real food.
Right.
And I think it's not that they can't handle real food, it's that the gut isn't in a place to handle it, but it can be. And
You just said it.
it's really lacking in the medical system. I mean, they don't tell you this, they don't help you with this. They just will prescribe you an antacid that cause more problems and more leaky gut. And then when you go to them and say that doesn't work, they just prescribe you a different brand. So as you said, it's not the, like, we hate doctors or we want to talk bad about them. It's not that they're bad people, but anyone who's very into health will tell you the system's flawed.
Mhm.
The healthiest person isn't getting their recommendations from the pyramid and the medications. I mean,
Yeah.
I on medications myself for a short amount of time, and the healthiest I have felt was getting my medicine from food and
Mhm.
taking a lot of people too. There's this little time frame where you go on 20 supplements and you think that that's better than the medication. And there's a whole nother area of, are you using the wrong supplements? Are you using synthetic supplements? This supplement could be canceling out this vitamin. So I
Mhm.
think, and definitely you are who I learned from most in those areas that I think my the groups of Blending Hope will really find valuable is um probiotics. You go online and everyone says give your kid probiotics. So moms go online and they go on Amazon and you buy a kid probiotic and you put your kid on that and it doesn't fix the problem. Now what do you see with the issue with that?
There's a lot of things with like probiotics. There's a lot of different types of probiotics. There's a lot of different quality probiotics, and the supplement industry is largely unregulated,
Yeah.
kind of a wild west, you know. So finding reputable companies and also probiotics might not be what you need right now, you know. This is a really highly overlooked. Excuse me, it's very overlooked, even in functional medicine and like holistic medicine. A lot of the times, people aren't looking upstream, and I see so many practitioners just go, "Up, leaky gut, let's treat the gut," and it's like, wait. Let's go through every stage of digestion and let's see where it is. Because if we're treating, the gut lining with probiotics, for example, we're not producing enough stomach acid, it doesn't matter. And this is you brought up antacids, which I think is such an important issue, and it's really like I happen to think antacids are kind of the greatest trick the devil ever pulled
Yeah.
because they put you on antacids, and I mean normal digestion, normal stomach should have a pH of like 2. pH is a measure of acidity and basic. So something that's very basic would be like soap, and something that's very acidic would be, lemon juice or whatever, right? Or stomach acid is extremely acidic. So 7 is neutral. Water is a pH of 7, and 2 to 3 is what our stomach should be. That would eat through your arm, and like it would totally eat through your skin, but we have a thick mucous membrane in our stomach that is designed to handle a very acidic environment. What happens when we have an acidic stomach? When we eat food, specifically proteins are tough to break down. That extremely acidic environment helps break down the proteins. It also kills pathogens, like bacteria, like bad bacteria. Actually, we're talking about probiotics, so let's talk about just the bacteria on this. But bacteria, viruses, like all sorts of things, parasites, things like that. When we have an acidic stomach, those things can't live past the stomach. They go in the stomach, and our stomach, it doesn't get the credit it deserves. It's like this beast of an organ that just like takes care of things. I I think of digestion as a fire, as like and this is taken from Ayurvedic medicine. It looks at the digestive fire as the Agni, which means fire. And we want our digestion to be like an incinerator that is really taking care of our food, breaking it down, extracting the nutrients so that we can use that. And then what's left over is just a clean residue. And that's what we want. In Ayurvedic, they have names for all of this. Where ojas is like clean residue, and ama is like not healthy, and essentially it's talking about poop. Like, how does your poop look? Is it clean and like it goes through, or is it like you're not extracting what you need from it? And so the idea of fire for our digestion has really been um, something that I've ran with, because I think it's so on point to think of it as this. We want an incinerator that kills all the things we don't want, takes the nutrients we do want, extracts those, and brings it. So first, an acidic stomach. And when you go to a hospital, it's almost like prophylactically to everyone, they give you antacids.
Mhm.
What does that do? That raises the pH of your stomach. So now when you eat something, you're not effectively breaking it down. You're not effectively killing the pathogens. And so the bacteria that's in there, the bad bacteria that's in the food, is not being destroyed before it goes into your small intestines. And then once it gets to your small intestines, it's able to proliferate, it's able to multiply. And that's called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is extremely common with antacids for the reasons I just described. If we're not killing the bacteria before it gets to the small intestines, the bacteria is going to grow and proliferate in the intestines, and we have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which then pushes on the lower esophageal sphincter, which is basically the the valve between our esophagus and our stomach. And so what little stomach acid we have then splashes up there. I mean, even you can Google this, type in lower esophageal sphincter and GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease is what GERD is. And it'll say that GERD is a malfunction of the lower esophageal sphincter. The lower esophageal sphincter stays really tightly closed. It's signaled to when it has an acidic environment in the stomach. And when it doesn't have an acidic environment, it doesn't stay closed. So the treatment for GERD, what is the treatment? Pretty sure it's antacids, right?
Okay.
So now we treat the we treat a condition with a substance that causes that condition, and it becomes a vicious cycle with that as well.
Yeah.
So what we can do and what works is actually hydrochloric acid is actually acidifying our stomach. That's what helps it. It breaks down the food, and it's phenomenal. And so I have a methodology of how to utilize that with and I know we have a lot of people here who blend food for their children, and it's a methodology of figuring out how much to use, and to do it so that we're breaking down the food before it goes in there. We're not relying on antacids, and we're able to have real food because we're not dealing with an extremely uh with a stomach that is not acidic enough.
So when the I know something you said before that really stuck with me is if the brain isn't so focused on gut problems or digesting food, it can focus more on healing the brain, is the way I like to think of it. Because with brain injury too, I fully believe in kind of like a high protein, high fat. But
Mhm.
in my group, one of the biggest complaints is my kid won't handle that. My kid doesn't handle a lot
Mhm.
of protein and a lot of fat.
Mhm.
What are your recommendations on parents who are thinking about that right now? And especially in the tube feeding, goes what I love about you is you're not just like, just take this supplement because that's what I'm going to give everybody. You get to the root cause of, were you on medications? How long have you been eating real food? Is this food a trigger? And you show people how to solve it. But also you put it in the parents' hands of how to solve it, because like when you use those tools to keep healing your kid instead of just, I gotta call my doctor, there's a problem. I gotta call my doctor, there's another GI problem. These tools you use just in for life. So it's really valuable information, because even with Denise, I've noticed I didn't always use digestive enzymes. For a while I was like, I don't need supplements. I totally got off all of them.
Mhm.
But I did notice that Denise just seemed like she didn't have as much energy. And the digestive enzymes were something like, after talking to you, I decided I was going to try. And I think the biggest thing I noticed was she just had more energy. She was like way more hyper. And my brain was thinking, okay, she must not be so tired. There must be a connection here. But I definitely saw a lot of improvements from it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I talk about this in my book also. When we're tube feeding, we're skipping the first phase of digestion, which is called the cephalic phase. Cephalic means head. And so it's in the brain, it's also in the mouth, so it's chewing. And when we chew food, like first when we, and this is actually a good exercise that I like doing. So imagine you have a nice plump lemon and you have a knife. And I want you to imagine taking that lemon, putting it on a cutting board, cutting it in half, and watching the juices kind of spray off. And then I want you to take that half, set it down, cut it again. And now I want you to take a quarter lemon that's right there and imagine putting it in your mouth and biting down. Now, if I did this right, your mouth is likely salivating. And that's just from thought. That's just an idea. That's the cephalic. That's the brain causing your body to release enzymes, because in your saliva are enzymes and lubrication and like really important things that break down our food before it goes on to the gastric phase in the stomach. And so we're skipping that whole stage. What we're doing is we're blending the food, and that's good. That kind of takes care of the mastication or the breaking down of the food in the mouth. But we're not getting some of the enzymatic activity that we'd like to get. So I recommend adding enzymes to your real food feed, but doing that when you feed, not doing it before, because that'll digest it up before, and that's not natural. Having it more, you want to mimic that stage. And what we do is we add digestive enzymes with the feeds when they're fed.
Correct.
Just kind of. stir it in there or blend it in there right before feeding. That makes a huge difference. So that would be for the digestive enzymes.
So just so the members are clear, so it's kind of like a fresh thing. So you put it in the food you're going to give, but when I tell parents to like bulk blend for a day or two, you don't want to just put
Mhm.
all the food, because what will that do to the food?
That will start breaking it down
Yeah.
ahead of time and
Uh,
kind
You don't
of make it more. I mean, I haven't tried it because I like that's just not the way your body would do it, you
break it,
know.
but
Um, yeah, and we want our food to be as fresh as it can be, you
okay.
know.
Yeah.
We, you know, uh, yeah, yeah.
So,
Again,
so
processing food is no longer fresh.
uh someone like Denise, who's like most kids in my group, digestive enzymes, if they are on high protein after every meal, just
No,
one.
high protein also is going to need uh, hydrochloric acid.
And see, that's new to me because I actually haven't
Yeah,
could you
yeah,
that is?
yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying is often overlooked. So we talked about the acid and the importance of that in the stomach for killing pathogens and for digesting our food more effectively. Like the stomach is a really important area. And this is often overlooked by most practitioners, even functional practitioners. And so basically what I do, and it does take some troubleshooting a bit, but finding the right dosage for you or your children or your child, right? So for me, and I've created supplements for this, the gut brain quartet, to really solidify the gut brain axis because it's so important. And so this one's called Ignition Aid, and this is, HCl, pepsin, and gentian bitters, as well as glutamic acid, and that lowers the pH of the stomach, so it acidifies the stomach more. And pepsin is an enzyme that breaks down proteins. So, so I take one of these per 10 grams of protein I consume. So I typically try to get 50 grams of protein with each meal. So I'll take 5 of those with each meal, you know, sometimes more if I have more than 50 grams of protein. That's what I'm at. I've had clients who are like every 15 grams of protein, and and we might even go to like start with like 20 grams of protein, every one of these per 20 grams of protein, and then take it down, you know. But that's where I'm at. It's every 10 grams of protein. My digestion is much better. I feel much better, and I'm getting more nutrition out of the food I'm consuming. So it's funny. My mom used to be like, "Don't you better eat that? Don't waste that food. You know, there are kids in Africa starving." I was like, "Send it to them, right?" But what I think is funny is like overeating with poor digestion is literally wasting our food. Our food becomes waste and is excreted undigested.
Yeah,
And I
and
think
us,
that's really important to understand.
we work too hard to have the food wasted. So that's
Yeah.
like, and it's expensive. It's time consuming. So that's for me, that's my main motive here too is blending food is worth it, but having these tools is kind of needed too, so you're not wasting. Now, I think with brain injury and tube feeding, even with Denise, I mean, I can work, I've tried everything, but I think the number one biggest um issue is, when you have a brain injury and you're tube fed, the gut doesn't like to produce bowel movements normally at all. It's like number one complaint. Do you think that could be a combination of low bacteria not digesting the food? or maybe overload? Or do you have kind of like an opinion on why that is so hard for people with brain injuries?
I've, I mean, it's usually from digestion not functioning as well as it could.
Expect.
And like I said, going upstream with hydrochloric acid, ignition aid, whatever it is, to lower the pH, that makes a huge difference. That and hydration. I bet that hydration, fiber, and fat.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So those are my main go-tos with that is like, and the fiber is, not your, you know, whole grains with extra fiber, like no. Um, it is, you know, plant matter. It is greens. It is carrots, whole carrots, like all sorts of produce. It's produce. Non-starchy, non-sugary produce is super high in fiber, and that's what we want.
Yeah, you don't want to just
Um,
buy like a fiber pill. The type of fiber matters.
um, I mean, and sometimes psyllium husk is a great thing to add in. Um, we've yeah, there's been a lot of success I've had with clients bringing in psyllium husk, which is a soluble fiber that really helps move things.
And while we're on this, you guys, if you have any questions about the enzymes or like your own problems as we go, please ask them because we'll answer your questions too as we go.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's so imperative to find the balance of what works for your digestion and move forward with that. And I think, what we've talked about is the ignition aid. And we've talked about Blaze Digest. This is on digestive enzymes. Um, the next one that I look at, we talked about probiotics. So I created my own probiotics that are also have immune cofactors, which so much of our digestive system, or so much of our immune system, is in our digestive system. It's like 70%. And you think about it, it makes sense because that's where we bring in the most outside material into our body, right? The biggest variety of outside material into our organism comes through our digestion. And so we need, immune soldiers on the front line, like making sure that we're not infecting ourselves with something. We need to make sure that we get nutrients and not pathogens, right? So our digestive system is very much the front lines for our immune system. And so this spore-based probiotics plus immune cofactors, and I've searched far and wide to find the like really high quality supplements to utilize for this. And this is what I put together. These are great. I take one of these a day. Some
And
people take two of them a day. Some take two twice a day.
and if anyone's
Depending.
wondering, they are just it's like a tablet, but you can break it open and
Yeah.
it does you could just add it right to your tube feeding. Because I know when I buy a tablet, so it won't clog or anything, which is nice too with the powder.
Right.
So, and what I like about your supplements too is anyone can use them, but they're still totally geared for someone who's tube fed. From the
Yeah,
quality, there's no additives. People in my
mhm.
know I'm really picky, and I can't say a single thing about your supplements. They're as clean as it gets. So
Awesome.
that's what I like about them too, is because you're getting, like I said, most people you go on Amazon, it's not regulated. You don't know what you're getting. I mean, I post this and I know people skim over it, but they've done tests. You order a bunch of probiotics and this and that on Amazon, 80% plus have ingredients in it not listed. It doesn't even have what it says in it. And I've come to a point in my healing journey where I've worked so hard at my health that I just I don't want to gamble with it. If I don't know what's in it, if I'm not buying it directly, I know Amazon's easy, comes in a day, it's just a click, it's fun. But for supplements, I really, really recommend not buying them on Amazon. I've heard too many tests come out and what's in them is scary. As you said, you can actually just copyright. Amazon doesn't check. I mean, you can just copyright a brand, put it on Amazon, and you think you're buying a certain brand and you're actually not. So the whole Amazon charade on our kids, I wouldn't gamble with, especially if you're trying to do something like you said, and you're putting live bacteria into your gut. In my opinion, that's nothing to mess around with. You want to know what
Mhm.
you're putting in. It's especially if it's for a kid, not for an adult, or the immunity factor is huge. So I think probiotics are super beneficial, and choosing the right probiotics is very, very important.
Mhm. It looks like we got a few questions.
Yeah,
One from Brandy about CMOS. No, I didn't recommend. I mean, I think CMOS is fine. I'm good with CMOS, but I didn't
I think
recommend that.
I asked in my group earlier. There
Oh,
was
okay.
but I honestly don't. I'm not a big CMOS person myself.
Yeah,
I know it's beneficial, but I haven't jumped on that one yet.
yeah, yeah. For me, sea vegetables. I mean, in my book, I talk about sea vegetables and the importance of those. I have four superfoods, what I call superfoods in there, which is basically foods that we just don't get in our diet very often that we should. So organ meats is one of those. Uh, cold water fatty fish. We just don't get enough of the DHA from that. Sea vegetables.
Yeah.
You know, it's rare that people eat sea vegetables, seaweed, kelp, dulse, things like that, and fermented foods.
Okay.
And I know you've talked about how fermented foods made a huge difference for Denise.
Oh, huge. I'm like you where I didn't grow up. I grew up with the worst diet ever. I mean,
Right.
I'm like you who I did this for my daughter. I wasn't into food. So fermented food was something that I think growing up I might eat once in a while and I'm like, oh, it's good. But I never realized the power it holds. But Denise, you know, I've been blending for her so long that I've tried everything. Every supplement, even now that I would tell you not to use, to every supplement that I would tell you to use. But for her, fermented foods have made the biggest difference in just the small amount in anxiety, mood, and bowel movement. So if I can't get her to go to the bathroom, you can fermented foods can be anything from sauerkraut to pickled beets. But that has been the most effective way I've found of just letting her kind of do her gut thing naturally. So then I started looking into probiotics and the difference between natural and again, the only mistakes I see is online, people, their kids are really sick and people just tag. I'm trying to think of that one probiotic that all the people use, and it's got like this little kid brand on it. But when I used to give those to Denise, she used to get sick. I mean, the sickest year I can remember for her in the past is when I was giving her just random probiotics and I didn't know what I was doing, and it didn't help her. And when I switched to fermented foods, it's like she never got sick. She started going to the bathroom on her own. So I know, my only caution with that is, you hear about some people might do too much and it might make their stomach upset. So it's great in moderation, but it's nothing that I would like focus on for a main meal. But added into any blend, it's helped us a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with the digestion becoming upset, that to me that's a sign
Yes.
that we want to work on it. We want to it's not like, oh, they don't handle that, so we're not going to give them that food. It's like, okay, let's figure out how we can optimize the digestion so that we can give them these foods that are extremely beneficial, you know? And this is a really important point for us to look at. I mean, I'm not a supplement guy like that much. I think supplements like they have a place and whatnot, but I'm way more about food.
Me too.
And we have the technology with digestion to fix our digestion using supplements, and which really works. And once we have our digestion dialed in, then the food can we can extract the nutrients from our food. So that's why, the supplements that I've released, these four supplements have gone through three, are meant to heal the digestive system so that we can extract more from our food and we can heal ourselves naturally with food.
Yeah, so the supplements you have, they actually like I know the Glow Nourish have aloe vera. They have a lot of ingredients that help.
Hmm.
I like that point that you made that these supplements aren't a medication that you have to be on long term. These help heal the gut so you can handle the natural foods better. And as you said, I definitely think a lot of people think my kid can't handle that. But warning signs, as annoying as they are, they're here to tell us that there's a problem and to fix it. And without those warning signs, we wouldn't know what to fix. So leaky gut is something that I've tagged, and I think a lot of people have learned in your book. And that's there could be a whole segment on that, but leaky gut is usually the main issue I see with not handling things. Because once you heal leaky gut, as you said, the stomach's pretty amazing. It can almost handle most
Hmm.
things, throw at it. But when leaky gut, it gets to a certain point where it can't handle barely anything. Um,
Hmm.
it's it's leaks, it's destroyed.
Hmm.
No,
Yeah, and that's been the trouble with well, and like I said, sometimes I see practitioners treating leaky gut without going upstream,
yeah.
and it's a disservice. And so, really important to find where we are, move our way from the head down, from yeah, from the mouth to the stomach to the intestines and on. So we're kind of going down that journey on this. And speaking of that, Kristen uh, says, "Hi, this is just awesome. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us all. Thank you, Kristen. Absolutely. I've been feeling that the fact that I'm feeding my husband through his J tube is not as beneficial as through a gastric tube. I agree. I would go for further upstream to allow the body to use what it has. The use it or lose it principle is absolutely applies, with our organs, with our muscles, with our brain, all of it, right? Um, but I see what you're saying. So I often supplement calories through the G tube, and he tolerates them just fine. Should I just try to reroute his feeding to the G tube instead of the J tube? Yeah, I would, and I'd be happy to work with you through that as well. And you said also, do you have recommendations for raw or cooked vegetables? Usually, with digestive issues, cooked vegetables absolutely are much better tolerated.
And
But
raw.
what we want is to build the digestion up to the point where it can handle raw. Because when we cook things, it destroys nutrients. It destroys certain things in the enzymes, etc. That come with the plant or the meat or whatever the food is in its natural raw form. So that's the idea. Is moving to that place. Um, and Alejandra asks about the four superfoods again. Yes. So it's organ meats. It is cold water fatty fish. It is sea vegetables, and it is fermented foods.
Very primal
Yeah,
ingredients.
very primal ingredients for sure. Very much like what did our organism evolve
Right.
doing? Did we evolve having, novel chemicals in our body? No. Did we evolve having processed sugar and processed flour with every meal? No. Uh, Honestly, did we evolve having handfuls of nuts, and eating nuts by the handful? No. Like
Yeah.
we would crack those nuts and like and have one or two of them. So like, yeah, I'm very into the primal aspect of things and using natural ingredients and getting rid of all the things that humans have never been exposed to for, the majority of our evolution.
I
And
can't talk him for an hour.
yeah, we could go off on that. Yeah.
So you've
Uh,
created a system. You
mhm,
have consults where people can come to you. Anything from, I saw you work with the elderly, from cancer to tube feeding.
mhm,
And I know this because when I came to you 4 years ago, I came to you and did a consult with you.
mhm,
So what's nice about your consults is it's actually more in depth than any doctor appointment I've ever been to, and that's just the truth. You go over medications. Your consults will go over your current diet plan, things you should do. You're very experienced with the J and G tubes, all the different aspects of that, which I really like. And the book is like the starter. Everybody needs that book. You can apply it to your own life. It tells you what to eat, don't eat. And then what I love is, you've created supplements to go with your recommendations. Oftentimes, even for myself, I have to give people recommendations, and I think I don't even have a good brand to give them. So
mhm.
in the past, I had created my own beauty products because I couldn't find clean products. So I love that your products go with your book and then the supplements. And I know I went over the guides too, but I was showing people to show people the guides that I had because Kevin does offer like free PDFs so you can download them.
Mhm.
But you can have these with you when you're creating meals, and it goes everything from the oils to what to cook with to how much to when to add in. There was a spot of when to add in supplements, liquids, and blends. And you actually go
Mhm.
over the bone broth, the DHA, the probiotics, when to add them. So that's something too that if you guys don't end up purchasing anything, I highly recommend you download these for a
Mhm.
PDF because those have been awesome for me.
Yeah. And there's one of those nutrition guides is specifically for blending tube food and baby
Oh, okay.
food creation.
Yeah, and you go over
Yeah.
the foods, what to add, how much, and at the end it will say how to use the oils and the supplements. So those are really nice. These are new. I think you created
Mhm.
these, right?
No, those have
These are
actually been around for a bit. Well, I mean, I finally laminated them and put them, and I have those for sale now where you can buy the laminate. They're basically cheat sheets to the
yeah.
book. You don't have to read the book. You can, get those handouts and, they're laminated so you can get them wet, and dirty, and put them in the dishwasher. You can do whatever with them. They're great. I uh, I use them all the time, and I wrote a book about them. Like I know this stuff, but I still love seeing having reminders and whatnot.
Because I don't count calories.
No,
You
me neither.
know, people will be like, well, how do you know what you're adding? And these guides are nice because you say how much to add and it helps. Like I lay it all out on the cutting board for a picture, but it also allows my mind to be like, I have this much meat, this much produce.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what you two do with the fist size. So I like
The
that.
fist size.
I relate to
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I think a lot of people want specific numbers and like down to the decimal point on things, and it's like, you know, that's not like it's really way more about having the right amount, and having not too much, and there's a big, how do I say this? There's a big window of flexibility, you know? And so what I say, instead of like, here, 1 cup of this and a tablespoon of this or whatever, it's I do it in the size of somebody's fist, like that. So if you're giving this to your kid, the size of their fist,
Oh, yeah.
and having that as a portion, using that as a portion, and it needs to be ballparked, needs to be close, and you can weigh it as well to, like, if you're looking to be specific and have the exact amounts. But for me, it's so important for people to actually do it. It's like somebody said, "What's the healthiest diet?" And the answer is the one that you'll actually follow. And that's making it easy enough so that you don't need to have measuring spoons every time you cook, and you can kind of eyeball things. I don't use measuring spoons when I cook.
So what up?
Very rarely.
So I got it in the messages, and I think it's just a thing with medical moms because, doctors do
Hmm.
like to make you feel insecure. And I'm just gonna say that you don't, I
Yeah.
usually the doctor's appointment feeling secure and my own. So what do you have to say to the GIs who are like, well, if you just do that, you're gonna miss certain vitamins, you're not, but yet well, they just want to get formula that has absolutely zero balance.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I see what Alejandro is saying. That's what they say. They're like, you calculate the calories and make sure you're not missing essential minerals and vitamins. Very true. Let's not miss essential vitamins and minerals. And we're making sure that we're not missing vital, essential minerals and vitamins and whatnot, through the nutrition plans that I've outlined. Like, make sure you get some of this and some of this and some of this. Because if we get it through the food we eat, that's far superior than even pill form, right? And these aren't vitamins or minerals. These are things that are, well, for example, HCl and pepsin. Those are things that our body endogenously creates. Endogenously meaning we make it inside of our bodies. Um, so so it's just supplying what we already create. And the reason we're doing that is so that we make sure that we're supplying what we need so that we're effectively breaking down our food. But clearly it's safe because we create it. It's not something foreign to our organism, like a drug, like a PPI, like whatever it is, a patented chemical. It is what we actually create. Same with the digestive enzymes. We create all of these digestive enzymes. Here's a boost of those digestive enzymes to ensure that we're breaking that down. And when we do this in combination with the right nutrition, we are extracting those nutrients. We are getting those essential vitamins and minerals. We're getting everything we need. And that's why I really dove down the rabbit hole, because we didn't evolve eating processed food. We didn't evolve eating isolated nutrients in pill form either. We evolved with food, and we evolved with our own health of our digestive system. And when our digestive system is suboptimal, we have the technology to boost it back up. And I think we I mean, it makes perfect sense to do so that we get more out of our food and get those vitamins and minerals. As far as calories go, and I love that you brought this up, because calories, yeah, I don't count calories. Calories are actually a measure of potential energy. Same as, I don't know if you remember physics class. Um, it's joules. Is You can convert calories into joules, and joules is like potential energy. That's what it is. It's an energy marker. So there's a lot of potential energy in a gallon of gasoline.
Right.
A lot of potential energy. Are you going to drink a gallon of gasoline? No. But that like looking at things as calories as that being an important marker, it's it's so generic. The type of calorie is far more important than the calorie. You know, calories from sugar are way more inflammatory than calories from clean fat, like a tallow or coconut oil or something like that, right? Like it's way more inflammatory, and that's what matters. Um, so so that's what I have to say about calories, and the calculation of calories, I think, is a complete. It's putting the attention on something so vague and broad that it doesn't really put it on what actually affects health.
Yeah, totally agree.
And while it does matter, what really matters, and how do I say this without being confusing? What really matters is the kind of calorie,
Right.
and this really broad terminology is something that I kind of want to like take away from our thoughts on this. And instead of thinking calories, because calories are not created equal, look at what those calories are. What kind of how is our fat intake? How is our protein intake? How is our carbohydrate intake? And finding that out and calculating that. That's way more important. Which is something that I love doing. I mean, I started with functional nutrition and neurology, and it's made such a huge impact on my life. And watching it make a huge impact on my clients' lives is really a joy.
Yeah, so it's definitely there's more power to me in calories and knowing what's in your food and diversity. Because I know someone used to say that really stuck with me. If you feed diversity in real food, the calories and vitamins take care of themselves. And there's a lot of power, and even like your guides go over the colors in the book, but there's a lot of power in different colors. They provide certain nutrients. You don't want to do just a bunch of green in your blends. So there's a lot of power in feeding the rainbow and diversity. Those two things alone, I think, take care of that's always taking care of the calories and weight gain for me.
Hmm.
A lot of gut work, as you explained. You can't just hop on board and give your kid the rainbow, but the gut work with that is
Hmm.
definitely the key to better health from what
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, the diverse microbiome comes from a diverse nutrition, from diverse food intake. So if
yeah,
we're feeding the same formula for months or years, that microbiome has become a not diverse at all, right?
yeah,
Like, and rebuilding that, building that back up is a process.
yeah,
Probiotics like this one, like Ember Boost. Actually, I changed the name. It's Ember Immune now. Um, but this helps to restore that microbiome. But it is something that needs to be done gingerly and like brought on. And I mean, it's not like something that'll like hurt anybody if it's done too quickly, but it can cause digestive upset and diarrhea or something like that. But we can do it slowly. Low and slow is how I like to start on things, but not too slow. I mean, I see practitioners like weaning people off of medication taking years, and I mean, Christy, I know you told me like when you came to me in 2019, Denise was on a dozen medications, right? Yeah. And now how many medications is she on?
She's not on any now. And, the medications, I totally didn't know what they were doing or what side effects they had. I just figured if they were prescribed, that's what I was going to do. I never saw no regrets getting off any of them. In my experience, they never helped with what they were meant to at all. And that's why I'm so passionate about root cause and food, because that's what your attention needs to be on, not going backwards, because medications not only don't solve the root cause, they're depleting minerals, they're depleting vitamins, they're blocking cell receptors. I mean, the list goes on, especially when it
Yeah.
comes to health too.
Plus, they need to be detoxified by your liver and kidneys.
Yeah.
And after being on medications for however long, there's always a lot of repair we need to do on liver and kidneys and other organs, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, it's just it's hard on us, and then this is something that I work with people through a lot with, is restoring the body's normal function so that it doesn't rely on medications, and it's able to detoxify the effects of those medications for so long. And and it depends on how far we can go with that, depending on how long they've been on those medications. But we can certainly move things in the right direction.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So I don't want to keep everyone too long because I know we
I
went.
wanted to talk about one more.
Yes, no, please.
So this is the Glow Nourish. This is a powder. Um, and so it's super easy to put in the feeds. Let me let my son. But yeah, it's powder or like that.
Does it have a taste?
And it has a little like kind of licoricey taste a
Oh,
little bit. I like it. I think it's delicious. Um, but it makes sense because this has um L-glutamine, diglyceride, licorice, and aloe vera.
okay.
Um, as well as I can never say this right, but it's arabinogalactan, and it's like it is a prebiotic that's really great for building up our digestion. And so what I'll do with this, instead of taking antacids also, this is really great for soothing our digestive system. I have another uh, product that's coming that's similar to this. It's called Glow Soothe, and that's actually a chewable tablet, which can be blended. But yeah, the Glow Nourish is great for tube feeds. And what we'll do is if somebody's having has too many um, of the ignition aid and is starting to have some heartburn, this is a really great way to calm it down. It does it not by raising the pH, but by supporting the mucosal barrier of the stomach. So you know, instead of making the stomach less acidic, it builds up the barriers. It builds up your digestive system rather than making the digestion weaker.
So that would almost be good for leaky gut too, right?
Totally, totally. All of this is great for leaky gut. It's for rebuilding the gut brain axis, but
Okay.
it's really looking from top to bottom instead of just here you go, here's your probiotic, here's your leaky gut supplement, and but this is yeah.
Because some moms, I know, like I like to recommend bone broth, but I
Hmm.
first of all, the store-bought bone broth isn't the best, and moms can't always make it themselves at home. I know it's a lot of work. So the aloe vera powder is nice to have to add into blends too. You could add it right into any meal.
Totally,
Push
totally,
them.
totally.